Hi, Caleb with Brownells here. In today's quick tip, we're going to be talking about handguard gripping options. And that can be in the form of vertical grips, angled fore grips, hand stops, barricades, different things like that. I know there's a ton of options out there, so it's really going to come down to personal preference. But I'm going to go through the different types and really what they're used for. And hopefully that'll help you decide which one is right for your firearm. So let's start with kind of one of the more old school and more common back in the day, I'd say. And that's just the plain old vertical fore grip. That's going to be this one right here. This one in particular is a Knight's Armament. You'll notice this one in comparison to a lot of other ones nowadays, it's a lot longer. So this one here is meant to be gripped by the full hand underneath the handguard. And that may seem kind of obvious, but once I get into some of the shorter variants and different types, you'll see why this one's quite different. But yeah, so this is one of the more older designs, and this is actually the same exact one I used in Afghanistan back in 2010. Even though there were some newer ones then, but this was the one to go with. All right, so in the vertical fore grip realm, and another one I was issued in Afghanistan, honestly, is going to be something like this. Now this thing is massive. It's a massive vertical grip. Obviously, also meant to be gripped with the full hand. This one is actually a grip pod. So you push this button on the back, and it deploys a BIPOD out of the bottom. Whether or not this is right for you, they're significantly more expensive. They're heavier. They're bulkier. Some people love them. Some people hate them. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to leave that for you to decide. Alright, so moving on from there, let's get a little bit more modern with some of the shorter vertical fore grips. And we have two options here. This one here is going to be your standard Magpul one. And this is your Bravo Company. You can see they're both significantly shorter than something like your Knight's vertical fore grip here. And even though you can fit almost a full hand on them, this one here you can. You'll hang off of it a little bit if you have hands like me. But so most people don't use them that way, and they'll actually kind of use them almost as a hand stop. I'll try to demonstrate this left-handed here. So you'll pull one of these numbers here. I'll show you on my rifle here in just a minute because I have one on mine. And the idea behind using something shorter like that is that you get more of your hand on the handguard, and whenever you're shooting like that, versus being vertical out here with a hand on your handguard, when you pull the rifle up to point, or your carbine, or whatever you're using, you'll more instinctively point at the target because you're pointing your hand at it. You're not pointing your hand underneath it, if that makes sense. It's been proven to work. It's a real thing. It's not some lore I'm preaching to you here. But before I demonstrate that, I'll go through some of the other types real quick here, and then I'll pick up two of the types and show you what they're used for and why I use them that way. So the next one's going to be the hand stop. And if you look at this Bravo Company here, this is a good example of that. And these are usually used just like this. You can flip them around and run them the other way. But this is primarily the way they're ran, muzzle facing this way here. And the idea behind it is that you grab your handguard and you pull back onto this and brace yourself on this, and it acts as a hand stop. And if you're running something with a shorter barrel, you can flip it around and keep your hands from going off the end of your handguard, which is also a really convenient feature. And then another type of hand stop kit will be something like this Magpul here. This one mounts directly to the bottom of your 1913 rails, and it acts as you have that backstop there, and then you also have one in the front. These are really cool. I like these. I like these primarily in the M-LOK configuration because they fit more flush to your handguard. If of course you're running an M-LOK handguard, which brings me to another really good point. Most of these come in pretty much any attachment method, whether that be key mod, M-LOK, 1913, or the older Magpul MOE. And let's take a look at the last one I'm really going to cover here, and that's going to be Barricades. So this Noveske K9, for example, this is kind of an older design. These aren't used too much anymore, but you can see it has those teeth on the front of them. So the idea with this is that you would mount it to your handguard, and as you're shooting, you're bracing up against a barricade, a wall, or something like that. you would basically jam this into the side of that to brace your rifle against it, and they actually work really well. But they're not used as much as they used to be, I should say. But still a good option. Alright, so let's talk about the two most common types and two of really my favorite types. I'll show you on my rifle here. Get it off of this rest. Alright, so this is that shorter BCM I showed you earlier. And the idea behind this is that you can reach up and grab yourself some actual handguard here so that you're pointing more naturally at whatever you're shooting at. So really convenient and easy to use feature there. Again, like I said, it's personal preference. This won't be for everyone, but it's definitely for me. And of course, all of these are going to be ambidextrous for the most part there. And I also combine this with a hand stop in the front so that I know exactly where to put my hand. And since this is somewhat of a shorter firearm, this being this 13.7 inch barrel, I'm not coming off the front of my handguard. I'm getting consistent hand placement every time. And when I'm shooting off of barricades, I can just tuck it right into the front there. So easy enough with that. Now, let's move on to the hand stop. Even though I have the hand stop on a shorter firearm in this case, I typically like these on longer handguards, but it does work really well on this shorter one. So with this, of course, you would just tuck your hand into it there, and you can just pull it into your shoulder. Again, whenever you're shooting, you're more instinctively pointing at whatever you're shooting at. So it takes you less time to get on target. So really cool feature, really good setup there. Like I said, in most cases, I know these are a little bit different, but in most cases, I like a hand stop on a longer handguard and a vertical foregrip on a shorter one. But that also depends on what brand hand stop I'm using and things like that too. Last but not least, we have the Magpul angled foregrip, and I'm saying Magpul, a lot of different manufacturers make this style of angled foregrip. But this is basically almost like combining the hand stop with the shorter vertical grips, but it just provides that angle there. So you would just come in, and I'll do it from this direction here. Grab it right here, wrap your hand around that handguard, and just pull back into your shoulder and stabilize the firearm that way. A really good option. Some people love this one, some people hate it, but again, it's really going to be personal preference. So if you can, play around with some different ones, see which one you shoot with the best and which feels best whenever you're handling your rifle. Because whichever one feels best is the one that you're going to be most ergonomic with and the one that's going to be easiest for you to use. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them down below. If you have a favorite setup, let us know in the comments below. I'd like to hear from you. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.